and welcome back to another episode of the Mostly Mindful Show. I'm Arja.
And I'm Ananya. Did you know that we spend a third of our lives sleeping? That's roughly 26 years in a 79-year lifespan. And 7 years are spent just attempting to fall asleep. Sleep is an essential part of our lives, yet most of us don't get enough sleep, or we don't get enough good sleep. In today's episode, we're going to talk about sleep myths as well as tips on how to sleep better. It's something I've personally struggled with, but I've learned that certain strategies can really help. So, Arja, tell me, most of us spend our weekends trying to catch up on sleep and get more sleep over the weekend. Is that actually a thing, and how does it work? Can we catch up on our sleep?
Great question. And I think it's like best point to start this chat with, especially with like our generation and people, working and stuff. We have long hours at work. Then you want to go, socialize, have other things to do. So the first thing that gets compromised always is sleep, right? You're sleeping less hours than your body essentially needs. And everyone's comeback or thought process is, never mind, Monday to Friday we're doing this and I'll just catch up on sleep on the weekend. And I know we've both been there, done that as well. But just to put it out there, like in layman terms, no, that's not a concept. Like, your sleep isn't a bank that, you can just deposit when you want to deposit and take out when you want to take out. That's just not how your body works. And it has more detrimental effects to like your cognitive functions and your hormonal health. So it might be okay to say, oh, I slept less one day and it's fine. And your body is not going to necessarily, show that it's not got enough sleep. But if you're doing that every single day for even like 3 to 4 days, it adds up. Having less sleep, you're just slowing down all your functions. Your recovery is pretty much shit. You're more moody. You can't concentrate on the work that you're supposed to be doing. So having balanced amount of sleep on every single night, I think is super crucial. If you have like say 1 hour less on a certain day because you have tasks to do, which is completely normal as well. Like you will have days where you have to extend yourself. But that aside is still okay. But if it just becomes a pattern where you just aren't sleeping Monday to Friday, for example, and then you're just like, oh, I'll sleep 12 hours on a Friday night and I can catch up and we're all good. Your body doesn't know what you're doing, right? For your body, every 24 hours, you're setting up the clock. So it needs every single thing to be switched on and energetic again. And the only way that's going to happen is with sleep.
Interesting. So basically, you're saying that we need to prioritize sleep every single night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good to know.
When we talk about sleep, I'm going to throw something back at you, which I think we're going to get a lot of laughs about. And some girlfriends and boyfriends might be shitting on each other for this. But a question to you, especially both of us being females, what are your thoughts? And I know you've read on this as well, on the fact that women do need more sleep than men. I have my 2 cents on it, which I'll share later, but I want to hear from you first.
So, interesting question. I do feel that women need more sleep than men. And I'm not just saying this myself. This is because studies have shown that on average, women need around 11 to 20 minutes more than men. So it's not a significant increase. But a study at the Loughborough University actually found that women tend to use their brains more for multitasking during the day, because it is a fact that more of the household chores do fall on women, and just general work and house chores and balancing work and life and all of that. And so because of that, they tend to need more sleep. I mean, we tend to need more sleep. And so that was actually found in a study.
Yeah.
In addition to that, jokes aside, we do need more sleep because of hormonal fluctuation.
Absolutely.
So this could be pregnancy, menstruation, menopause. For me personally, in my luteal phase, I find that I do need more sleep because my body just craves it more. I need more rest. And even in terms of my workout, I focus on more restful activities rather than something that's going to make me really tired.
Yeah.
So studies have shown that women need more sleep than men.
Great. I mean, like I said, I think we're gonna get so much shit for this, but why not? I just wanted someone to put it out there with like a theory attached that women need more sleep. But regardless, I 100% do agree. And again, it's proven that women by nature are better with multitasking. And because we're multitasking more, I think you just need more recovery time as well. And it's not that, oh, you need like 2 hours more.
Yeah.
It's just like that little sweet spot of, like we said, I think it's like 20 to 30 minutes more
Yeah.
on an average that just sets you on that optimal sleep to start functioning again.
Totally.
And I agree as well, like from personal experience, if I don't get that optimal amount of sleep, I can like push through the first half of the day, for example, because I'm just like, oh, it's okay. Like, Tis, you had some sleeps, you're low-key a little fresh to like start off on another day. But as soon as I'm hitting halfway, either I'm crankier or I'm hungrier, or it's just like everything goes south. Like I'm snapping at people. And as you're older, you're just like, dude, you can't even be snapping at people. Like, you're not 15 years anymore where you can just like throw your shit around. You have to learn how to keep it together. So
Exactly.
sleep comes down to all of this. And it's surprising because I think you also understand the importance of it only once you get older.
I know, absolutely. And I feel like we actually need more of it as we're getting older. When
Yeah.
I was younger, I think I could have totally done with 5 or 6 hours and been fine the next day.
Yeah.
But now my body does tell me when I need more sleep. There are ways, like you were saying, you feel hungrier, you're snappier. That's your body's way of telling you. And those 20 minutes really do make a difference. If you can get 20 more minutes of sleep in a night, of restful sleep,
Yeah.
it can actually contribute to your day in a very positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like quality of sleep is, I think, paramount. And with age, you do get to that. Because same, like I think till college and first year back at work, I think we were good to sail through. Like, these late night deadlines did not bother us. We would do a deadline, then you'd want to like go out, party, come back, see 4 hours, and you're still like, oh, I can sail through tomorrow.
Yeah.
Now someone tells me to come out for dinner. I'm just like, shit, dude. Like, I have to plan my day according to the fact that, oh, today will be a late night. So I'm just factoring in what my previous day and next day is like, just to make sure I actually can function and I'm not like on my shittiest behavior. And then,
I know. I mean, for me as well, it has to really be worth it for me to go out and disrupt my sleep cycle. I prioritize my sleep now over many other things because it is important. It affects my entire week.
Yeah, absolutely. I think same. Like, I do prioritize sleep, and like I don't know, like, is it a good thing to say or a bad thing to say? Like for me personally, I think it is obviously a good thing, but like the way the other person takes it also, as I think just this age group as well, people don't necessarily understand the importance of sleep because everyone just had a different phase of life, right? And I think it's also very important to just put it out there that it's normal to turn down plans or turn down something social very often because you want to just catch up. Not catch up, but because you're making sleep your priority. Like I can tell you for myself, there's because I run, a lot of all my running like sessions happen early in the morning. And for me, it's very important that if I want to perform well on my session, I do need to recover well. And the only way I'm recovering well is if I'm sleeping enough. And the only way I'm sleeping enough is if I'm sleeping on time at night, right? So it's actually a backward cycle that you're playing. That involves that a lot of times I do have to say, okay, I can't meet you tonight, but I can do tomorrow because I have an early morning session.
Right.
And usually, like, then there's two ways people take to this, right? Like either you're going to be shat upon from your friends or family or whoever, or there's that other side who actually understand that, and there's no right or wrong way. Because I feel like the people who are shitting on you are not shitting on you out of a bad place necessarily. It's just that A, they want you to be there. B, they're not in the same boat of life as you right now.
Which is also fine.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just not for you.
Yeah, it's not for you at this moment of time, and that's fine. But the fact that you are headstrong enough or should be headstrong enough to just say that, hey, tonight's not the night where I can, push it on the time. is totally fine.
Exactly. I mean, just yesterday I met a friend for dinner and she asked if we can meet at 7 p.m. And I was like, this is perfect. That's what I always want to meet at 7 so that I can be in bed at a reasonable
Yeah,
hour.
and you're done with
And-
work.
Exactly. And I have enough time to then rest, unwind. I can still do my nighttime routine.
Yeah.
And feel good the next day. So I want more of those dinners, or then maybe I'll save it for once in a while if it's going to be a
Absolutely.
late night.
Yeah.
But that definitely also says something about sleep and working out, that like you were saying with your runs, you need enough sleep. So they do say that if you've slept less than 5 hours, then you shouldn't do an intense workout the next day.
Yeah.
So for me also, if I've not had enough sleep, I'm not going to try and like reach a new personal best at the gym because it's just not worth it. And
Yeah.
you're probably not going to reach a new personal best because your body is tired.
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
recovery also becomes so much harder.
Yeah.
So if you have had less than 5 hours of sleep, then I recommend doing something lighter, like a walk or a yoga flow, an easy flow,
Yeah.
or something that's not going to get your heart rate too high, because then that can actually have detrimental effects and it can impact your recovery and it can become a bit of a vicious cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from like a training perspective as well, this is something I focus a lot on with my clients. And this is something I think I learned, the very, very hard way. And I still struggle with it, where I'm trying to tell myself all the time that if I haven't slept properly, there is no point just going to the gym to have like a heavy session. Like I'm still an advocate of show up and do something. Like I'm not going to maybe take the day off of doing nothing. But if I haven't slept enough, and like this is to do with time and your sleep quality, which I'll just get to as well. But if it's like you haven't slept at least minimum 6 hours, I would say 6 to 7 is like a sweet spot. You're genuinely doing more harm than good when it comes to strength focused workouts, because your recovery hasn't happened optimally. Your cortisol levels are higher, your heart rate is going to be higher, so you're actually not going to perform your best. And people don't understand, but you don't build in the gym, right? You actually break yourself down in the gym. When you're doing a session, you're breaking down your muscles. Then the time you're actually building, and you will see like the time where your body will actually get the results and shape up, is the time outside the gym, aka your recovery time. So if that's only shit during your day, then it's just like, why?
Exactly. And then your next night's sleep is affected because your recovery is not
Yeah,
optimum.
absolutely.
And it becomes a vicious cycle.
It does. And that's when people end up going in the literal trend of how we started. Oh, we'll just do it on the weekend, like
Yeah.
catch up. Like, nobody, that's not how it works. Like, that's why I said every single day matters and it affects your performance everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
this is just gym. But like you said, even work, if you haven't slept enough, you just end up getting distracted. You don't know where your focus point is.
Yeah. And then you're probably not going to make the best choices when it comes to your diet either.
Yeah, because you're hungry.
Exactly. You're more likely to gravitate towards junk food and a lot of caffeine and stuff,
Yeah.
which then has its own detrimental effects.
Yeah.
So it's better to then focus on sleep. If you haven't got enough sleep, take it a bit easier the next day. Get enough sleep and then go harder at the gym if you
Yeah.
try.
Absolutely. And I think that also just links to like the quality versus quantity of sleep.
Mhm.
And like, I think there's like different notions about this, right? Some people think quality over quantity, whereas scientifically and realistically, it's actually quality over quantity. So even if you're sleeping, say 6 to 7 hours, but it's good quality sleep, it's as good as, or if not better, than say, having 9 hours of sleep.
That haven't been good.
Yeah, like if it's like, broken sleep, or you've just been like tossing, turning, got up to have water, got up to go to the loo, like very broken sleep, that's actually not as good. And your quality of sleep can actually be divided into, 3 segments. And very briefly, just not to get into too much jargon, but these are just points that I think people should know. There's deep sleep, REM sleep, and like just your general sleep patterns. So deep sleep is basically the highest point of your sleeping time where you're actually just relaxed. Okay. So you want to optimize your deep sleep. Then your REM sleep is basically where your eye movement is happening. So your eyelids are shut, but your eyelids, like, yeah, your eyelids are shut, but your eyeballs are still moving. So that sleep is the phase where you're actually dreaming. So that means your brain, like cognitively, is still working. So it's not bad sleep, it's still good sleep, but it's not restful, if that makes sense. So you want to make sure that happens, but it shouldn't be like, you'll have like a lot of times we've spoken about this, or you've had like family discussing the next morning, right? I had this dream. Right. And some people have like this elongated dream. So that just means you were like active sleeping at that point, where you feel like you're sleeping. You'll wake up pretty much like, oh, I slept and I'm rested, but it's not actual, deep sleep. And then there's like light movement sleep, which is the time you're falling off to sleep and when you're waking up, which also is totally fine. But I think just making sure you're getting that deep sleep is crucial.
For sure. I think all of these parts of sleep that you mentioned are crucial.
Yeah.
Trying to get all of them into your sleep pattern are really important.
Yeah.
And I was thinking now we could also go over a few tips on how to sleep better. It's something that I've really struggled with. I am more of a night owl and I've just come to terms with that fact. But of course, it is super important to me to get enough sleep because we've just discussed how detrimental it can be if you don't get enough good sleep. So in terms of tips, like what are some of the things that you'd suggest?
Honestly, like touch wood, I have not had issues with falling off to sleep as such, at least recently, but that's because I've put so much like conscious work into it. I think a couple of, like, the first thing that comes to my mind when it comes to sleeping well is just a good routine. Okay. And by good routine, I mean, when you've had a well productive day, you actually sleep very well. And I'll just break that down really quickly. By well productive, I mean you've got in some form of exercise. And I'm not going to say do this or do that. Whatever it is for you, you've got in some form of movement. You've eaten well. You've eaten at, good timings of whatever works for you and your routine. And like, you've been active at work, because then your brain is working, so you're mentally exhausted. Because you've done your physical activity, you're physically also a little exhausted, so you feel accomplished. And that way your brain also just knows, okay, and like this is psychological, your brain knows, okay, I've put in good couple of hours today on all the functions, so now it's time to rest and reset. So I think the days I've had that part of my routine, I actually do sleep very, very well, and I don't have a problem falling off to sleep either.
Right. That's interesting for me as well, personally. Like when I have had a really exhausting day in terms of my workout, work and whatnot, I do sleep better and I also fall asleep easier.
Yeah.
But of course, sometimes it is tough. So one of the things that really prevents me from sleeping well is screen time right before bed, because it's also stimulating your mind.
Yeah.
So instead of helping you unwind, so one of the things I suggest is, it's pretty obvious and we've all heard this before, but no screen time before bed. And in addition to that, I do find that having a wind down routine really helps me. Like just like having a morning routine can be beneficial, I find that before going to bed, I like to do a few things that are more ritualistic for me, which then actually help me sleep better and they get me ready for bed.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I do in my routine is I have some herbal tea, but I do try to have this about 3 to 4 hours before actually going to sleep, because I also don't want to be running to the bathroom at night. So in terms of herbal tea, there's chamomile is great. It can actually help you feel calmer and go to bed. And I also have fresh peppermint and I grow the mint on my own.
Nice.
So just mint leaves in hot water. And I find that both of those just help me get into my sleep state, and it calms me and it helps me unwind. And reading a few pages of my book before going to bed always helps me fall asleep.
Nice. So I think a couple of things that definitely like are part of my routine. And again, I do this a lot with clients as well, for falling asleep, quicker, better, and getting a good sound sleep is, and this is also, I think, said out there everywhere, but like now we can just say, been there, done that, tried that, is not having caffeine after like latest 3 p.m.
Yeah.
I would like to say 2, but like fine, some people usually have lunch by then, and then, you have your last cup of coffee to push you through the work day. But at 3 p.m. is absolute caps on no coffee. So that's one thing, because you don't realize, but the effects of coffee stay in your body for like a good 6 to 8 hours. It might not be very prominent at, towards the latter half of when you've consumed coffee, but inside it's still doing its thing. So it's harder to fall asleep, like cognitively as well. And then another thing, which I will admit is very hard for me because I have such a sweet tooth, is not having dessert or anything too sweet super close to bedtime. So like I of course do have dessert after dinner, and I'm not saying don't have dessert, but like, the late night munching, or there's just a chocolate bar by the side of my bed. I think that also, it just increases your cortisol levels, right? And you're going to get a sugar spike. And with that sugar spike, you actually will not be able to fall asleep.
Exactly.
So you might think like, oh, I'm getting like late night munchies, but actually, which might be it, but it does affect your sleep. And I've been on that side of keeping chocolate in my room, because I love it.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
I feel you. And it's not just sugar, it's actually just any food. Ideally, you should be having your last meal or anything to eat at least 4 hours before bedtime.
Yeah.
Or I know for a lot of people that's not realistic because they get home late. And so it for some people, even if you can make it 2 to 3 hours, I highly recommend that. And of course, sugar is one of those things.
Yeah.
I do have a sweet tooth, and I love, along with my herbal tea, I love to have a piece of dark chocolate. But again, I do it several hours before bedtime so that then I'm set and it's not going to then keep me up.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I've also been on the other side where if I eat too close to bedtime, my quality of sleep is completely impacted. I'll be waking up, I'll be restless, I don't sleep well because your body is then focusing its energy on digesting food rather than on sleeping.
Yeah. So I was going to say on that, like you said, it's not realistic for a lot of people to eat, like say 3 to 4 hours before, and that's totally fine. But what I would say is your closest bet would be at least try to have your last meal an hour or an hour and a half before you're going to bed, because I think that's still a realistic window. And what also, two things that do help with this is, one, straight after you've eaten, don't become a couch potato. Just walk. And even if the walk is inside your house and it's like from the kitchen to the drawing room to the dining room, that's fine. But just getting that movement, even if it's for like 7 to 10 minutes, it's actually just helping with digestion. Because like once you just like plonked yourself on the bed or in front of the TV, digestion just becomes slower. So that also just, say you've had a heavy meal, you're just going to feel sluggish, right?
Absolutely.
And that's just not a good feeling. And because you're feeling sluggish, you can't fall off to sleep. So I think that's one thing that has definitely like caught my eye, just realizing things myself. And then the second is actually been having adequate water during the day. And I don't think a lot of people realize this, but if you're in one of those phases of you wake up middle of the night to drink water, is obviously because you're dehydrated. Why are you dehydrated is because you haven't had enough water during the day. And because you're waking up at night, that again means you're not getting good quality sleep, right? Because it's like a sudden, you've woken up. And again, I've been there, done that, where I notice I'm chugging a bottle of water middle of the night. Like it's 3 a.m. Like, why the hell are you having water? It's because like I probably just did not have enough that day, right?
Yeah.
And that's again disrupting your sleep. So I think everything just links up to one another of your just overall 24-hour routine.
Absolutely. And the walk thing that you mentioned, I think that even doing it after lunch is great. Ideally after any meal. And that can again help you get better sleep because you're also then having more of a productive day. Your digestion is better through the day.
Yeah.
And then you can also, your body focuses more on sleeping better rather than other functions.
Yeah.
And I think another tip that really helps is also trying to get some natural sunlight first thing in the morning. This also helps with your circadian rhythm and going out. So it could be a quick walk with your dog or on your own, or just even being in your balcony, getting some sunlight helps your body realize that, okay, this is daytime, and then at night it becomes easier to fall asleep.
Absolutely. And to add in that morning sunlight, it should be morning sunlight without any screens.
Yeah. The screens are not good for sleep.
Morning and night, absolute peaks should be no screens because the rest of the day you are on the screen.
Exactly. I've made it a rule for myself as well now to not be on Instagram right before sleeping and right when I wake up, because it impacts sleep, but of course it impacts so many many other things, including your mental well-being. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I think we can all agree that screens are not great for sleep.
Okay, we're very sure that screen times is a big no-no before sleeping and right after waking up. But a couple of things really quickly of just realizing that you've had shitty sleep is, you'll pick on these things yourself. You're going to be craving more coffee, like caffeine, than another normal day. You're going to be crankier for sure. You're going to be craving more of the unhealthy, quote unquote, sort of food. Like you'll want more snacks, you'll want more deep fried food, more carby food, and you'll just notice you're going to be distracted, focus levels aren't on point, and even the way you interact with people, you're just going to be snappier. Like your patience tolerance is lesser. So I think these 5, 6 are, your cues to realizing that you've had shitty, like a night of horrible sleep or bad sleep or whatever it is. And I think the way now, thanks to us being in the 21st century and every day a new brand doing something else or a company coming up, a good way to actually track your sleep are these wearables that are coming about, right? I think we've all, like both of us have at least tried it. I still wear a ring to track my sleep. And there's a lot of people who are either wearing the ring or wearing, their Apple Watch or a smartwatch or the Whoop. I think these are like the 3 most crazed around things. But I will definitely say, there's 2 sides to the coin with everything. And even with these wearables, there is a good and a bad. The bad, I think, is just that too much data also becomes like obsessive, and you're just constantly seeing, oh my God, how much did I sleep today? Oh my God, what's my heart rate? So I think that's like the only negative side of these wearables. But I think more on the positive side of it, at least for me personally, it did help me, just fix my sleeping routine, I would say, because I always felt, oh, I'm sleeping enough, because I would always feel great the next day. Like I would not really have crashes or anything as such. But I was not sleeping, a significant amount of hours that my body needs. And again, it would just be piled up. So me wearing a ring actually just put me in a very good pattern of knowing, okay, I need to be in bed by say 10:30, 11, and I wake up by like say anything between 5:30 to 6:30, depending on what I have scheduled for the next morning. So for the first, I would say month or 2, I actually did track my hours every day and my deep sleep, REM sleep. And now I still wear the ring because it's just there and I wear it. But I noticed like literally last night, it's been dead for 10 days and there was no data on my app. But I was sleeping well. I'm like, my routine is there. So I think that was a good balance of using it for what it's made. Fix your routine, get your rhythm, but don't be obsessive about it.
Interesting. Yeah, I totally agree with you that there is the good and the bad side of it. And I really do feel like it's becoming an unhealthy obsession, while also having benefits where it tells you things that you need to know. So to share my personal experience, I was wearing the Oura ring for at quite a while, more than 1 year. And it was very helpful in telling me what my triggers are. So I know that the days that I was eating late or I had a drink at night, the next day, my sleep was impacted, my recovery was impacted. It also helped me because when I was on my luteal phase and I was doing some really intense workouts, I could see the next day my recovery scores were really badly impacted. So it also showed me that these workouts, I'm not supposed to be doing such intense workouts on my luteal phase. Of course, one thing is listening to your body, but sometimes you can't always hear it loud and clear. And that's where the ring comes in handy. In terms of tracking sleep, it's great because it'll tell you exactly your quality of sleep and also some things that might be triggering it. So it helped me identify these triggers, what's good for me, what's not good for me. But at the same time, it did become an obsession where I would keep looking at my app every day. I'd open it and I'd see, have I reached my step count goal? Have I reached my calorie goal? It would also just send me reminders. So it became an unhealthy obsession,
Yeah.
which to me was the opposite of wellness.
Yeah.
So now it actually crashed a week before my wellness festival. And I thought, okay, this is perfect because I knew my scores are going to be terrible that week. So I was like, maybe I don't need to see it. I know it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
And then after that, I never really went around to getting it repaired or anything because I felt like now at this point, I know what's causing good impacts and bad impacts, and I know what to avoid and what to look for.
Yeah.
And it's given me a lot of knowledge and information, which I now don't need to look at obsessively.
Yeah.
So I'm actually feeling like at this stage in my life, I'm better off without it.
Yeah.
And if ever I have certain goals to accomplish, or I'm really struggling with sleep or something like that, or I'm finding that my heart rate is going high, then of course I'd consider going back to it to track those things. But at this point, I'm quite happy without it because it was becoming quite an unhealthy obsession, which I've seen happens to a lot of people. And then it's the ring, it's the watch, it can be endless.
Absolutely. And that's what I was going to say. Like, it's with wearables, it's also become like a quote unquote trend. And I wouldn't want to like put it in a bad way trend because yes, we're living in times where people are making these things. It is beneficial, but it's also like, oh, talk of the hour, like so cool. I have a Whoop and this is what it tracks and all. And I think it's also important to realize everyone doesn't need to track all metrics, right? Like there are basics that everyone should and needs to track, which is stuff like your step goal, your water intake, your sleep. But then, for example, a stuff like something like Whoop, which we'll dig deeper into, on another episode maybe, is more for people who are like hard out athletes. So, I think when it comes to wearables, there's a couple of red flags and a couple of green flags. And this could be anything. If you're someone who tracks on a ring or a watch or whatever, like I wear both. But for me, I use my watch only for workouts. And that too only for my runs. And I don't follow the data for anything else. Like I've literally only set it for knowing my set running workouts. Like, I need to know my pace. I need to know my heart rate. I need to know the time. That's genuinely the only time I need it. I don't sleep with it, but I sleep with my ring also because I find it more comfortable. But like I said, it's been dead for so many days. Now it's just like a habit that it's on my finger, but it didn't bother me one bit that I didn't have the data. So I think that is like a big, in the red zone is that yes, wear wearables and they're great. And like I'm friends with a couple of the founders who are making great rings in India. And they're also making it accessible with good price points, with good features in it. But what is important to keep in mind is get this for the long term, not for the short term. Because I think the short term is when it has adverse effects, right? Like you just become obsessive about checking it every single day. Like that's really not it. And I think the green flag that you need to look out for and not look at just what the variable data is giving you is listening to your body. Mm-hmm. And you said it right. There are some times you can't only listen to your body and there are times you can't only listen to the variable because like your mind and heart is saying something else, but data might say something else. But on a broader spectrum, the data at the end of the day for anything is just data. It's numbers, but your body internally might be feeling some other way.
Exactly.
So that's the time you shut off that red light and your green flag that you should be looking out for is listening to your body.
Yeah. And if you're someone who can't really switch off from the ring and does become obsessive with the app, which is sometimes it's engineered like that, then maybe just get it for a short while. You understand your patterns and then you can see what works for you and what doesn't, and then you could go off it. But of course, it's such a personal thing. So like for you, for example, clearly you're okay without looking at the app all the time.
Yeah.
And that's great if you can have that boundary. And if you feel like it's becoming obsessive, then my recommendation would be that maybe don't become dependent on it.
Yeah.
And it's also okay to not have it every day.
Absolutely. I think because we've like shed so much light on like sleep and the importance of sleep for someone who's struggling, I think instead of taking sleeping pills, of course, your best resort is to fix everything naturally, like just listen to your body and fix its rhythms on its own. And if wearables is the answer for it, I think that's great because, why not use something that someone's made because they're making it for a reason. But if it's taking you into that zone of obsessing about it, which again will affect your sleep stats, because if you're stressing about, oh, but I need these many, like, I need this much sleep. Like I have a friend who would always comment on my stories when I would put my sleep stats. Because my sleep stats, touchwood, were great. Like it was 94%, 93%.
No better feeling when your sleep stats.
Yeah, and I was just like, yeah, so happy. So I would like put up a story, and like there's this one friend of mine who would always comment and be like, dude, how are your sleep stats so good? Like, what do you do to fall asleep? And I'm just like, I honestly don't have like a specific fall asleep routine. Like what I said, for me, my routine is having a good productive day. It puts me to sleep. And I literally said that. And I asked him his, routine. And there were two things I caught out. A, he was working out super late at night. So, your endorphins are just flowing and you couldn't fall asleep. And because he was working out late at night, he was also eating late at night. So sleep scores were just affected. But the inner message of that was he was equally obsessed with just that sleep score. And then like I sat with him, I was like, dude, A, change all this, but B, don't look at just that big score. Now you have to look at your quality of sleep as well. Maybe you just function better on say 7 hours of sleep or 6 hours of sleep, but your quality is like top notch. So I think if you have to just learn all that, a wearable is great because it is giving you that data and it's teaching you. And I think all of us are also old enough to then tune yourself to just be like, dude, this is it. Like you don't need it on a daily basis. Like of course, it will make you obsessive maybe, but you can also just act mature and smart not to make you obsessive with it.
Yeah, I mean, if you can draw that boundary, then great. And we'd love to hear from you guys as well. Do you wear wearables? What's your take on it? And yeah.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was of value. It'll be really nice if you can share your thoughts and also drop in the comments what topics you would like us to cover. And we would love to research and share our thoughts on that.
Yeah, so please like, share, follow, and we'll see you next week. Yeah. Bye.